Welcome to Canceled. We are back. I took a week off there. I was out of town. I was up in the beautiful state of Maine. Ever been to Maine, Pat Dean?
I don't think I've ever been to Maine. No.
It's nice.
Is it?
It's very white.
Yeah.
I vow myself, like, in these towns, I'd see a black person, I would, like, nudge my girlfriend and be like,
Kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I remember last year I went to Asheville, North Carolina, to tell some jokes, and it was like I was walking around with Avery Moore and Martha Kelly. And like at one point, we just looked around. And we were like, "So there's like a lot of white people here, right?" Like, and they're like, "Yeah, this is fucking kind of odd." Like it didn't feel good.
No, and then like
I never thought. I don't know. It's weird.
There was we were at this bar and there was like no black people, and then like I saw a black dude walking. I was like, "Oh, fucking tight." And then he was just like the whitest bro black, like he was a black dude, but he was like, these fucking, like he was just a bro ass white dude.
Yeah.
And it really bummed me out.
Yeah. Well.
But that bar had the best giant bar game, you've like giant Jenga, giant whatever. Wall size giant Scrabble.
Really?
On the wall, magnetic wooden pieces for your things, big chunks. It was fucking dope.
Okay. Yeah, no, I've never been. I think the farthest northeast I've gone is like Massachusetts, I think. Yeah. I don't know. And that's about far northeast as I'm
it was good.
Happy with. Because
good seafood. It was great. Big ass clam.
Hell yeah.
So let's talk about this dumbass. All right. We're in the Night Stalker. I have to say, my first note is his dumb face sucks. They open with these previously ons, and the first shot of the previous on is him like kind of turning in a chair towards camera, and I'm like, as soon as I see his face, I just don't like him.
It's a very generic face. I think with what's the guy's name from the original?
Yeah, Gary McDavin, the original Colt Jagan.
He had like a distinct, not just his outfit, like his face is like a lived-in face.
Yeah, there's some character there. Some worn-in lines. This dude just looks like a JCPenney model.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Absolutely. The thing that kind of annoyed me about the beginning of this is that it's like in those flashbacks, it's like this is the place where Kolchak killed his wife, and you're like, oh, are they going to bring that storyline back?
Nope.
And like they don't.
Not at all.
Like,
not even a little bit. I don't know why this is the previously on. You're just setting up like the premise of the show.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. What annoyed me in the opening, if we get past the previously on, is this dumbass voiceover about like the body reacts to a threat with sweat and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And it's supposed to be like she's on the bus and whatever. And then the thing that we're supposed to buy as just a threat is just 3 brown people driving past. It's just a car with 3 black guys in it. I think maybe 2 black guys and like a Mexican dude. You're listening to music. That's it. There's no like
anything.
Yeah. There's not like they don't even really look at her. There's not like a reaction. No, they're just 3 brown guys in a car, and she's like, ooh,
driving home.
So the premise of this episode is messy. There's a girl in a rundown house, like the girl we've been following on the bus. She goes to this kind of rundown house. We see her getting like her head dunked in a bucket of water by 2 like kind of preppy white guys.
Yeah.
There's a third guy over in the corner. I don't think we see him.
No.
Right. He's in shadow, right? And then they're like, enough. And no, she hasn't had enough yet, whatever. She runs away. She runs into the bathroom. She like hides in the shower stall. She hid in the shower stall with a clear shower door.
It's the worst place to hide.
Yeah. She hides behind a window.
Takes out her phone, starts listening to music.
At which point the shower door slams closed, the faucet turns on, and it fills all the way up to the ceiling with water, and she drowns. But then the water's gone.
Yeah.
Right? And, that's magical.
What's happening here?
Good question. We could ask Kolchak, because he says it's a simple case of homicide. Only it isn't. Well, then just say the sentence, it's not a simple case of homicide. Why are you trying to be so dramatic?
Yeah, he just wanted something cool to say as he walked away. Well, what I thought was funny is that like when they all show up and they're kind of like antagonistic towards each other again.
They're back to being shitty towards each other.
I felt like they kind of were friends at the end of the second episode.
Well, here's the thing. This happens. This happened in Freaky Links. This happened in which is another terrible show that would be covered on this podcast. The shows that are sort of X-File clones, right? Yeah. Where you have one character who's the skeptic and the other one who's like kind of a believer in supernatural shit. what they don't do that the X-Files did was have the skeptic either have a reasonable explanation for what's happening, or at the very least acknowledge that she's witnessed some weird shit. Right? So, like, in this one, she has, our female, Gabrielle Union, Perry, whatever the fuck, has twice now encountered wild supernatural shit, right? And immediately is like, come on. What do you think? There's ghosts?
Yeah.
I don't know. Fucking maybe. You've been dealing with fucking supernatural werewolf creatures in the woods and a man who can control minds from a prison cell. Maybe there's fucking ghosts.
There's clearly something. I mean, like, I don't know. That's the problem with series like this is that it's like the characters don't suspend their belief, which makes no sense. Because, like, we do, because we're like, oh, we've seen this. But you've seen all the same shit we've seen.
Yeah, you've been personally involved.
Yeah.
Your life was threatened.
I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it happen to you.
Yeah. It's and it will continue to be a problem with all of these, with this show. I'm certain of it.
Sure.
I did laugh when they go to investigate. So they go to the house where this woman is turned up dead or whatever. I understand that, like, the sort of trope of, like, there's a police, there's, like, it's cordoned off, it's a crime scene, and then, like, the press shows up and they have to let them in for some reason. But, like, not just into the crime scene, like, where the clues and shit are. You don't get to just be in the bathroom, like.
Yeah, they're reporters. Yeah. They're not, like, they're writers.
Yeah,
like,
in the old Kolchak, he used to have to pretend to be not a reporter to get snuck into shit.
Constantly.
Or, like, have some sort of, like, connection or hookup. These people just let in to wander this fucking house where he says, you smell that? Incense. And this wax is from candles. And he's like, oh, it's got to be Satanist occult shit. Or it's just like goth kids. What's the more likely thing to have happened here? That a bunch of teenagers broke into a house and lit some candles, or that the occult is taking place?
I used to do that. Like, there was a house right near where I grew up that was just this abandoned house, and we would be 15 and we just hang out in this house and drink beer, and I don't know why we're alive.
Right.
I mean, that's like, looking back on that, I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Because the guy who lived there was unstable. It's a whole thing. It doesn't matter. But anyway, so it's like, I don't know. I do love the idea of, in the original Kolchak, just the idea that everyone who met him just held him in such disdain.
Yes.
No one kind of liked him. And I feel like that's kind of missing from this one, where, like, he doesn't really have much of a relationship with these people that he interacts with.
Anybody. Like the police force. Well, the one thing that they don't have is, like, reoccurring police characters or anything.
Yeah.
So, like, he's never in this, which is fine, but, like, nobody's like, goddamn Kolchak again. Like, there's none of that. But also, he doesn't have that relationship with anyone he works. Like, he's just, like, mildly annoyed by her. Vincenzo doesn't particularly like him. He doesn't particularly like Vincenzo, who was, like, the whole reason he has a job. We'll get into that in the second episode. Made me really dislike fucking Kolchak. So what we find out here is that she is drowned, but there was no water in her lungs. Somehow she died of drowning, all the same symptoms, but there was no water in her lungs anywhere. And because you ever heard of dry drowning? No, I haven't. There's going to come up with a bunch of random shit in these next couple episodes. The next one, oh boy, Hellfire. We'll get into it. So yeah, what we find out is they explain the concept of dry drowning, where, like, your throat closes off and it's like you drowned, but you didn't actually drown, or some bullshit. But they go to some, like, she's a college student. They go to there's like a candlelight vigil or whatever for her, where they meet that fucking annoying ass kid from the school paper. Who sucked. Everyone on the show sucks. I'm like,
they're kind
of. So he tells them, like, yo, you got to ask. He's like, ask so-and-so why it's so ironic that she died of drowning. And the reason it's so ironic that she died of drowning is she was afraid of drowning, like everyone is.
Like everyone. You have some close calls while you're swimming, and you're like, you're never like, oh, no big deal. It's like, no, I almost died.
Yeah, no, drowning seems like a real terrible way to go on top of that. So the idea that she's like, oh, she's extra afraid of drowning. But why? If they had explained, like, oh, she almost died as a kid, there's some sort of reason why. No, she's just extra afraid of drowning.
Hey, let me ask you this. You ever been to a candlelight vigil?
I don't know that I have.
Because I was watching it and I was like, you know what? I wouldn't know what to do.
No, you just kind of stand around and be sad, hold that candle.
But do people talk? Like, is there a thing?
Well, there was somebody on stage, like, talking, right? It was like the professor and her friend or whatever. It was like, oh, she was such a wonderful person or whatever. I think there are speakers and you kind of stand around.
That'd feel really awkward.
I think I would feel very awkward, particularly if, like, I didn't really know her, which I'm assuming is most of those people.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah. There's like a couple hundred people there. I think there's a part of it is like you just show up and kind of be like, oh, aren't I good for showing up kind of a thing.
Man, they should have those dudes she was scared of show up in the car. That would have been tight. Paying their respects.
No, they're still in the car. They just parked the car in the crowd of people. They're just kind of still playing Mellow Man Ace or whatever they were listening to when they drove by. But here's what we find out. She was being initiated into a secret society at the school. Think Skull and Bones, but it's called the Three Society or whatever. Because, this is so lame, it's called the Three Society because they only initiate 3 new members a year.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot for a secret society.
Yeah,
that doesn't seem like a few. Like, I feel like you do 1 occasionally. You do 3 a year.
It's also the 3rd episode, so it's like for a second I really was just like, did they just not have a title?
They
like,
just didn't title this one.
3, sure, fuck it.
And part of the initiation is that they expose you to your biggest, whatever your biggest fear is. They expose you to it, right?
Why don't you just lie?
I would lie immediately. I bet my biggest fear is puppies and marshmallows.
Yeah, I'm really frightened of getting a decent night's sleep.
Yeah.
And no one calling me before.
Yeah. No, it's obviously stupid. What we find out also, though, is that our Jane, our photographer, is taking a bunch of pictures, and somehow there's like, it's so dumb, there's like the most obvious. So it's like a picture, and like he's like, look at these pictures, and they're like, what? I don't know what I'm looking at. What do you mean you don't know what you're looking at? There's a big white slash through exactly the same slash through all of the pictures. And you're like, oh no, let me zoom in. And when you zoom in, there's like a face.
Yeah. And they're like, well, that could be anything. I was like, well, no.
No, it's clearly a face.
It's a ghost.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what else could it be? It's not. Especially because,
and
like,
she says some bullshit. She's like, "Is it a double exposure? This is a digital
that's
camera,
what I'm saying.
you assholes."
It's not like someone damaged the film. It's not. It's a computer.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
The professor who's giving a speech at the thing turns out to be one of the 3 society members. He's like, was in charge of the initiation. He was the guy in the shadows that said she didn't have enough or whatever. Now there's some dissension in the ranks among the other 2 guys and him, because one of them's like, I know that you tried to hit on her and she turns you down and I'll get you fired or whatever. And it's a whole bullshit. So he goes, like, they approach him, the reporters approach him, he blows them off or whatever. And as he's walking away, this makes me so mad. So as he's walking away, suddenly he's like on the edge of a building. He's like, oh no, and he falls off the edge of the building and he dies. But what we find out is his body is destroyed the way it would be if it fell from a giant height, but he didn't fall from a giant height. It would have to fall from a 50-story or whatever building, and there's no building over 4 stories on the campus.
Spooky.
Right? Here's what pisses me off. The explanation that the skeptic that Gabrielle Union gives is that so in her body, they do a tox screen on the dead girl, and they find this crazy hallucinogen in her system. And it turns out one of the other initiates had been making it. He's a chemistry major. He'd been making this hallucinogenic drug in the lab or whatever. And her argument is, well, he hallucinated so strong. That's it. So her argument is that if you take acid and think you fell off a building, your body will react like you fell off of a building. That's not how physics works.
No.
It's not. And like she says it, and no one goes, that's dumb. Like someone should look at it and be like, no, that's not physically possible.
Yeah, I mean, the human body is capable of some amazing things, but that is not one of them.
Yeah, exploding because you took acid is not one of them. Every bone in his body is broken.
Yeah, it's wild.
Because he fell from like 5 feet. So clearly there's some supernatural shit happening.
Yeah.
She's like, no, it's got to be the fucking mushrooms or whatever. Here also why I don't like Gabrielle Union in this episode. So the first like kind of Kolchakian thing in all of this is that he has a hookup with a guy at the morgue, right? He knows a guy that he bribes with like courtside seats or what. It's supposed to be courtside seats, but they're not.
They're just not at all, yeah.
They're just shitty tickets or whatever. So Kolchak's kind of an asshole. So he's like, they go to the morgue to look into, find out like what happened to him or get a tox screen or whatever. And she is immediately so shitty to this dude.
Mean to this guy.
For no reason.
An orderly. Okay.
But also why? Because, but one, he's got the keys. All you need is to be able to get into the building.
We all start somewhere. Gabrielle Union.
But also, she goes, an orderly? Why do you think that? Because he's in scrubs in the morgue. That's what they all wear. I think it's just because he's like a young black guy, which is shitty because you're also Black April Union.
Yeah.
But he says like, I'm actually a pathology specialist or whatever. Like he corrects her.
Yeah.
And then again later, he's like, yeah, this is because broken bones. It has to have fallen from 50 feet or whatever. She's like, says the orderly. Bitch, I'm not an orderly. I just told you I'm not a fucking orderly, asshole.
I'm an adult.
Yeah. Like I'm just short. Like, why are you being a dick about this?
And it's yet in the next episode, someone is like kind of shitty to her. So it's kind of like clearly like you know what it's like to get shit on by older people. Like, just fucking calm down.
But also then I don't like the decision the show makes is to have him then hit on her as the last moment of that scene to kind of get like, oh, it's not so bad. He's a creep.
Yeah.
He's not a creep. Also, all he did, he didn't go like, hey, hachi machi or whatever. He just said like, oh, hey, I got these tickets to the game. Do you like sports or whatever? Like, it was a perfectly respectful way of asking someone a thing.
Hey, like, let's hang out. Yeah. Nope, you're actually a jerk. All right, never mind.
Yeah, I don't fucking like any of that. So the kid that was making the talk screen, they go, oh, well, he did it. He gave her the drugs. He must have killed her or whatever. He goes to jail. He's killed by a hallucinogenic snake, right? He's in his bed. Apparently, snakes are his biggest fear. I wrote down here, I said this earlier before we started recording, but I have a note here that just says, fuck snakes. They're such a bullshit animal.
Do you remember why you said
here's
that?
why I don't like it. Here's what I don't like about snakes. There's no rules.
What on earth?
Here's what I mean. You got a snake, like most things. Look, hear me out.
Okay.
They can kind of move however the fuck they want, right? Their fucking spines don't really matter, so they can flex and blend weird. They can climb like up a wall. There's no fucking. How do you get away from a snake?
I feel like
they can go under a door or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like
why can it crush you? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's got too many options.
It's got too many powers.
I don't like it. It's got too many powers.
It's like the Vision from Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
It can do anything.
It can do anything, and which then makes it kind of a bullshit character because, like, well, then what are your flaws? What are your balls? Yeah.
So it's the thing about snakes is that I feel like they're a bullshit animal because I feel like they're barely an animal. They're just like one long thing with a head. They're just a giant head that extends to the back somehow, and I feel like. I don't know. But I don't know. Like, snakes are, like, creepy looking, but I feel like they're fairly easy to get away from. Like, if you're walking in, like, a field and, like, the grass is high, yeah, you're not going to see it. But I feel like I could take on a snake.
You can't. So one, you definitely can't. They are mad poison. Not all of them. Poisonous.
Yeah.
Fast. The striking distance of a snake is something like. It's like a third of its body length.
Oh, really?
So if a snake is, let's say, 10 feet long, it can strike it can cover a 3-foot distance in the strike in a matter of like a second. They're wild fast.
Really?
Yeah. Snakes are terrifying. Also, I'm not particularly scared of snakes because I don't run into them.
Yeah.
As a rule, spiders, other conversation.
Spiders, fuck that.
Fuck spiders. I don't. And I fuck everyone who's like, oh, but they eat the other bugs. I don't care about the other bugs. I'm not afraid of them.
Yeah, I know.
I'm afraid of spiders. I don't care about gnats.
Don't be scared of the thing. It just devours other living things. It's like, well, all right, that's horrible.
So there's more pictures. The ghost is in them for whatever. Obviously, they do some research. I'm not even 100% sure how they do what they figure out, but they go, "Oh, we got to go." Oh, I remember what it is. They go, "We got to go back to where the story began." And they're like, "Oh, with her?" And they go, "No, with the house." Right?
Yeah.
So they do some research into this house, and they find out that there was a horrible crime there. This man killed his whole family and then himself. Right?
Yeah.
But this is my favorite part of that, and this is for fans of this podcast. So they tell the story in flashback of this man, and he's like moved his family there. He was working at some like brickyard or whatever, put all his money into this big house, but then he loses his job and he can't afford the house. And he's like, he told his friends he'd rather see his family dead than land up on the street or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So we cut to this man, and he is like a haggard man in his 40s, couple days growth. Obviously, they're showing he's got a bottle of whiskey. He's just sitting in front of the TV, just about to kill his family. What we know about him is he's a drunk, middle-aged man who's about to murder his family.
Yeah.
He's watching My So-Called Life on the television. Clearly just because ABC owns the rights to that TV show, but he is just watching an episode of My So-Called Life, which I laughed so hard. And they cut back to it multiple times.
Well, teen angst, it's literally what calls you to kill people. That was an interesting part. Just the guy with the axe or whatever. I thought that. Well, I'll say this about this episode is that it's not super. I think it's not as bad as some of the first two, I don't think.
Yeah.
But it's not super great. But what's cool, they do some cool the director does some cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like where the guy's walking and suddenly falls off a building, and the whole scene with the guy with the axe and stuff. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was shot well for sure. So he kills his wife. First, he kills his daughter, who's like asleep. Then he goes in and kills his wife. It's kind of bloody. There's like a lot of like blood dripping places.
It's kind of a bloody show.
Yeah.
They get away with a lot. It's kind of interesting.
Surprisingly. So then there's two. So there's a wife, a daughter, and two sons, right? And the one son who's like mildly older, but he's still a little kid, grabs his little brother. They go hide in the cabinet, right? But they're waiting for the father. At which point, the youngest son dies of fear.
Man. Yeah. That was so lame.
Yeah. It was very lame. It was, he just dies of fear.
Is that even real? Can you do that?
I mean, you can have a heart attack, I would imagine, but like, that's not what is said. He just dies from fear.
And everyone just goes, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. Well, there's a fair amount of that in this show. Next episode, I got a whole thing.
Well, especially because like the guy who ostensibly fell, 5 feet, but had
every bone in his body broken,
and no one seems to think it's that weird. Like everyone's just, all right, cool. Well, wrap him up. Let's. We got a job to do. And
just Kolchak, who's like, wait, how did this happen? And even the other reports. That's what makes me so mad about Gabrielle Union. She's supposed to be a reporter, and for the sake of the show, she's supposed to be Scully, right? She's supposed to be the skeptic. She believes everything right away. If the government or the police say anything, she's like, well, that's got to be that. That's got to be that. You are a black woman reporter. You should be less trusting.
She's absolutely the least curious reporter in history.
So they go. What we find out is that Jack, who was one of the three initiates, the other one who's not been killed by the snake, is that boy who survived. The father hangs himself before he finds the boy. That's Jack. He was adopted, changed his name. He's Jack. Why he doesn't know that's the house that happened in, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, they have to reveal that to him, which that was that you were there. That doesn't make any sense.
I feel like if that was me, my subconscious would just be like screaming at me to not go inside that house.
Yeah.
Like, something bad happened in there.
Also, he was like 9. He just remember it. He wasn't like 4. He was a boy. He's had multiple Christmases in that house. He would 100% remember it.
Yeah, he's coming back from his part-time job. It's like, you gotta remember this.
Yeah. So the premise is that the ghost of the boy who died from fear has attached himself to this house, but then also when they went in, they were doing this bullshit ceremony. They kind of invoked his spirit, and now he's attached himself to all these people, and he's making them die by their biggest fear. And Jack's biggest fear is obviously his father murdering him with an axe,
which is pretty scary.
Seems reasonable. So he has they leave them there. He has a little bit of a flashback about getting fucking killed by his dad. They come and wake him up, and then they just leave. And I'm like, at first I was like, did they win? I don't understand. I
don't get it.
I don't understand what the resolution here is.
Hey, you didn't die from nothing.
Right.
You win.
I guess. But also, did that get rid of... Well, no, the end of the episode is they go back and burn the house down.
Oh, yeah.
But does that get rid of ghosts?
The ghosts are immune to fire, I'm pretty sure.
Also, well, then how isn't, look, if you're going to, it's fiction, you can establish rules for your universe.
Yeah.
But you have to establish those rules. What we're going on is classic ghost story rules, and I don't think that you burn down the house and it gets rid of the ghost.
Yeah, you gotta have some sage or something.
Something, right? But that's what the original Kolchak would do. Would be like he'd be like in a library. You go, look, I found this fucking book that says if we do this thing, it'll get rid of the spirit or whatever. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
One goddamn sentence, and I'm like, okay, you did the due diligence of fucking explaining this.
Yeah.
They do none of that on this show. He just shows up with a gas can, has some bullshit voiceover, and then we're like, oh, I guess that's how you kill ghosts.
I guess, or the ghosts are now free to wander the neighborhood.
That's what I'm thinking.
Freak everyone out.
Everybody. Yeah, that annoyed the shit out of me. Also, there's a line I want to go back to when she's pitching about the orderly. They show up because he's got a hookup in the morgue, right? And he hands him this envelope, and he opens it up, and he's like, "Oh, what? These are supposed to be courtside." And he's like, "Oh, they're courtside adjacent," or whatever bullshit line he gives. And Gabrielle Union goes, "You've been bribing this man with tickets?"
Yeah.
So
I mean,
why is that what's so bad?
It's not illegal.
It's just tickets.
And also, that's kind of what you do, I feel like. I feel like when you're a reporter, you kind of have to bribe people to get info. Otherwise, they're not going to.
It doesn't. It is such a weird response. Also, she emphasizes with tickets. Like, that's the weird part. And it's like, why? I don't know who's like directing like the actual action, like the directing. Like, hey, this is how the read should be, but it's just dumb.
Yeah, it's a little odd. Yeah. That part was strange. The whole episode was pretty weird. Like when you're watching it, you're like, okay, this is going somewhere, and like it kind of doesn't. Like
no, it doesn't really. That's the other thing with this episode, with all of this like through here. They don't really win that much, right? The first episode, they save the girl, but like I get those monsters are still around.
Yep.
The second episode, the cops kill the bad guy. They just barely don't kill. He barely doesn't kill her through no action of his own, right? And he has no part in the resolution of that episode. And then this one. I mean, I guess they burned down that house, but this doesn't seem very action-y or, like, hero-y.
Yeah, no, not at all. And also, it's like, what do they tell the cops about? Like, I don't know. It's just a lot of unanswered stuff.
Well, here's what happens. So what we know so far is the cops think that one of the two initiates killed her, right?
Yeah.
He is then crushed to death by an invisible snake in his prison cell.
Yeah.
That's it. The police don't go, hey, do we want to figure out how this man was crushed to death in his jail cell?
Yeah, inside a locked jail cell, he was crushed to death.
Yeah.
No, and this guy, a lot of people are crushed to death under police custody. Like, I feel like they would, I don't know. I feel like someone's getting sued.
Let's get into the next episode, which was worse than
Yeah, this one was,
Because, well, for starters, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
There's nothing supernatural about this episode.
Nope.
Nothing at all, which is kind of the basis of this show.
Otherwise, it's just a cop show. Or a mystery show.
Mystery show or like a sci-fi. It's not even that sci-fi. It's just sci. It's just just chemicals, right?
Just a lot of science involved.
It's so so. I will say that I thought the effects were good in this episode, like the makeup effects.
Yep.
So basically, here's the premise of this episode. It opens with a man. He's at the gas station.
I'll say
he's a bit of a dick.
The opening thing I thought was very cool. I was like, this is kind of a cool intro.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, oh, well, all right.
So there's a man at the gas pump. He's a little sweaty. He sees a black guy on his cell phone, and of course he has to be like, "Hey, you're not supposed to be on your cell phone by the gas pumps, man. Read the sign." And the black guy's like, "Whatever, fucking shut up," which is exactly how I would react. Because like, shut up. Why do you care?
Yeah,
I don't know. I found it. It's like a dick move to be like.
Fuck off.
I was at fucking Central Market a little while ago, and where I was parked was like way far from like the carousel return.
Yeah.
But there was like one of those little like islands with like grass, so I just kind of put the cart on that, so it wouldn't roll in anybody's car. And this woman was like, they don't go there. If everyone would just return their carts to whatever, and I was like, do you work here? And she was like, well, no, but I didn't. And I just like put my headphones on and walked away. And I could hear her keep like continuing to talk to me. And at one point I turned around and I was like, no one's listening to you. Why are you talking right now?
Yeah.
It's just like older white lady who had to try to enforce some imaginary fucking superiority in that moment. But I was like, what?
And if this means so much to you, fucking you
Put
bring
the
it back.
fucking cart back.
It's on wheels, bitch. Fucking do it. You can do it. I know you can do it.
That made me fucking mad. Anyway, so he tells him that, and then he reaches in his pocket, and he's like, oh, what is this? And there's like a little red wax doll in his hand. It's a little weird doll. He's like, oh, I don't know what that is. And then suddenly he starts melting and like bubbling, and shit's coming out of him, and then he catches on fire, and this gas pump explodes. There's a big explosion. Now, the one thing I don't buy in that moment, well, there's several, but the one thing I for real don't buy in that moment is the black dude gets way too close.
Yeah.
That guy fell to the ground. You can see from a distance that guy's bubbling. I will call 911 from a few towns over. Like, I'm driving away, and then I'll call 911.
Yeah.
I have a cell phone. I don't need to get close to this melting man.
There's absolutely no reason for me to get close. Yeah, to Mr. Melt. There's just no reason.
What we find out is that this is very strikingly similar to there was a serial killer going around who had a dumb name that I don't remember.
Terror Maker.
I
fucking
forgot it was
sucks.
called the Terror Maker.
And his thing
I thought it was going to be something fire related, but
That's
it's
what I'm
not.
saying.
It's definitely not.
Well, his thing is like, so yeah, the guy, like, it's reminiscent of a serial killer who said he could bring hellfire to his victims, whatever. So you'd think he'd have a cool biblical, like, I'm the archangel or something.
Yeah.
The Terror Maker.
It's so lazy. It feels like someone like, okay, we're going to put Terror Maker just because we haven't gotten anything better, but we'll fix it before we actually shoot it. And then it just never
They just never did, yeah.
And he killed a bunch of people. Then he was killed in an FBI raid. But there's questions as to whether the guy that killed was actually the Terror Maker.
Yeah.
The Terror Maker, the FBI says, used he had stolen some sort of chemical from a weapons manufacturing plant that he worked at. And that chemical he would put on these dolls. And if you touched the chemical, you'd burst into flames, right?
Yeah.
Fine. The supernatural argument for this is Kolchak going, well, what about the people who say there is no such chemical and that he was actually using hellfire? And through like 3/4 of the episode, I was like, oh yeah, hellfire. He must be using hellfire. And then like 3/4 of the way through the episode, I said, wait a minute, what the fuck is hellfire?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a thing, and they make no effort to explain it. I was just dumb enough that like I was like, yeah, all right, hellfire, sure.
Yeah, sure, why not?
But it's probably hellfire. Well, and then immediately I was like, wait a fucking minute. Like,
especially because it's like, well, some people say that chemical doesn't exist. It's like, yeah, but it does. Like, the company makes it.
And
like,
they find it at the end. Like, also, they find it in a suitcase with a sticker on it that just says, like, chemicals. Like, it's so cheap. It's so lazy. So there's a reporter that works there that we haven't met before. We meet him now. He famously covered the Terror Maker case when it was happening. He's got a 6-figure book deal for the Terror Maker book that he's going to put out. So when this case comes up, they should theoretically be turning it over to him. But they're like, well, we're going to work it on our own because we don't. Kolchak doesn't believe, he thinks it's some hellfire guy, right? As opposed to this dude who was killed. They meet a FBI profiler who made the profile initially for the Terror Maker, the original case, and he is sweaty and nervous is the best way I can describe him.
It's immediately telegraphed.
He is the most guilty man I've ever seen.
He may as well be wearing a shirt that says Terror Maker 2. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like,
I also feel like they were trying to make us think that somehow the wife was involved. Yeah. Basically, they go to his house and they're like, hey, we know he was the original profiler. I was wondering if you could look over this case because there was another incident that looks like the Terror Maker. And the wife is like immediately like kind of like, oh no, he's not doing it. Closes the door. She like throws the case file in the garbage or whatever. I'm like, oh, maybe it's the wife. But that lasts 1 second because the second you see sweaty ass Perino, who not only is sweating, but having like flashbacks of people catching on fire and shit.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, it's him then.
It's clearly him.
And they don't make any real effort to make you think it may not be him, right?
Yeah.
They find one guy. Well, here's what's also weird. They catch a guy making the wax figurines and trying to put them in some guys. So basically, he's killing people that he says are trying to make chemical weapons because it's bad for the world or whatever. And they meet one guy who's like trying to. The FBI catches a guy planting a thing. He's got the chemicals.
Yeah,
and I'm like, well, it's obviously not him. I'm like, well, maybe it's him.
Well, he has the chemicals.
He's got the chemicals. So that's my problem. How does he also have the chemicals? I don't understand.
So weird.
Where are they getting? These are supposedly such top secret chemicals that no one in the world can prove they exist. Odorless, colorless, that you can literally touch one drop of and you burst into flames.
Yeah.
No one can prove they exist. Everybody just has them.
They all have it. It's like a biggest open secret.
What we're talking about are at least 3 people with this chemical, right? So you've got the profiler who's been copycat murdering after the thing, the original Terror Maker guy, and now this dude who's just some guy who they say repeatedly is an idiot. They say like he's a big dummy multiple times. So how did he break into this fucking place?
It doesn't make any sense.
Oh, it made me so annoyed.
The thing that I feel like at one point, the whole idea of like, the FBI guy who gets 2 and 2 inside the head of the guy's profiling and like becomes this like acolyte or something or whatever, copycat. I feel like that at one point you'd be like, oh, that's kind of cool. But I feel like it's just been done so many times. It's like that whole, oh, you stare into the abyss.
Yeah,
dude. Like we've seen this before.
I would also like to add the writing in this episode is so bad. Also, his name was Perino, and I wrote down Panera Breads multiple times.
Nice.
At one point, somebody says something along the lines of like, "Well, where is it? So basically, he gives you these little red wax statue like figurines.
Yeah,
and that's what's got the thing on it. And somebody says, "Well, how did he get the thing in his pocket, the figurine in his pocket?" And Kolchak says, "Same way he did with all the other victims." And someone goes, "Which is?" And he says, "Nobody knows." Fuck you! Fuck you in your stupid face. Like, fuck you for writing the show, but if I'm in this universe and I'm talking to him, go eat a dick, you smug asshole.
Why would you even bring it up then?
It's so annoying. It really made me mad. And then also, here's another reason why fucking Perino's a prick. Not Perino, I'm sorry. He's the Kolchak is such an asshole.
Yeah.
They get busted for working this story when they shouldn't be, right? It's supposed to be the other guy, the older guy's story. He's, the national desk as it is, so no one else is supposed to work it. But they get busted for working on it. Vincenzo gets called in and fucking read the riot act because he's been like, he knew they were doing it, and he was like letting them do it. So Gabriel Union comes to Kolchak and is like, look, he's got busted. We can't work this anymore. We're going to get fired if we get caught. And Kolchak is like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to follow the truth. And she's like, well, it doesn't matter. Like, look, it's not just about you. Vincenzo put his ass on the line for us. If you get caught, he's going to get fired too. And he's like, not my problem. He literally says, that's not my problem. He is supposed to be your only friend.
Yeah.
The only person who took any amount of a chance on you when you were the suspected murderer. He got you your current job. Yeah. All of this shit. He should be the only person you care about.
Yeah.
Kolchak's like, nah, not my problem. Literally just says that. I'm like, well, then you're my hero. Who am I supposed to root for in the show? Fucking Jane, the photographer?
And also, like, why are you like this, Kolchak? Like, there's no real. I don't know. I mean, I know that his like wife's dead or whatever, but like, I don't know. I feel like it doesn't. I don't know. It's weird that his personality is like that, and there's not much of an explanation beyond like, oh, his wife's dead. And it's like, yeah, it sucks.
Well, so here's the thing: if they wrote his character to be so singularly obsessed with finding out what happened to his wife that he neglects all other personal relationships, doesn't give a shit about anything else. He's only following this one story and he'll follow it till it's end. Everyone else be damned. That'd be one thing. But that is not the case. He hasn't done a stitch of work on his wife's murder since we met him.
And like, hasn't brought it up.
It's not coming up. He doesn't try to link it to anything. We don't see him like on his off time looking at the symbols, any of that shit. He doesn't so then he's not singularly obsessed. So then why are you also a dickhead?
Yeah. What's your deal?
Yeah. What is your fucking deal?
What's your problem? That's what I want to say.
Yeah. Gorn, by the way, is the name of the other
like
reporter.
Howard Gorn or something.
Gorn. It's just a gross sounding name.
Yeah.
I don't like it. And he's kind of a creep. He's hating on Gabrielle Union. He calls her sweetheart a lot. And that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So at one point, I think we're supposed to maybe believe that he's somehow in on it because like, she's like, hey, can I study under you to try to get some information or whatever? He leaves and she's like going through his desk. She finds there's like one drawer that's locked. And he's like, you don't have to look in there. It's not up, that doesn't matter. That's unimportant to you. She gets the key immediately, opens it up. And like, I thought for a second, like, oh, he's going to have like the mold for the wax figurines or something. No, he's just got a bunch of files on the Terror Maker, which of course he does. That's his story, so I don't understand why this is a surprise.
I can't believe he has information on that thing he's writing about. Well, yeah, that's what it's for.
And then the files basically just say what Kolchak has been saying all along, but not in a way that it confirms it. It doesn't go like, oh, the government knows it's really Hellfire or something. The files just basically say like, oh, other people think maybe it wasn't that guy. Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. This one, I feel like, at least with like the first episode, it's like the whole reveal of the axe murdering father is like pretty late in the episode. So it's not like you're going like, well, I bet it's this guy, or I bet it's that guy. Like you don't see the ending coming,
right.
And whether that's to the writers, if that means they're doing that on purpose or what, I don't know. But the point is that this one, you just know everything that's going to happen. It's like, why are you telling us this story? Because you're telling us in the first like 8 minutes,
right? You're telegraphing it so hard, yeah. And here's what I get, or one of the many things that makes me mad, and why our current Kolchak is an asshole. So he goes back after he, basically they bust this other guy who they go, oh, then the FBI's like, oh, it's definitely him. And they're like, well, it's not him. He's some fucking idiot. He's like a terrorist wannabe. But Pinero's like, no, I had him in my files 10 years ago. He's been thoroughly researched. He's just a fucking idiot. He's a terrorist wannabe. It's not him. He couldn't have pulled any of this stuff off. So Pinero and Kolchak are like, well, we'll work it together. They're going through files, blah, blah, blah. And they go, oh, wait a minute. And Kolchak's like, wait a minute. The guy who was the original terror maker who got killed in the raid with his wife had this what's the word I'm looking for? Storage locker, and he's like, so does he have any living relatives? And he knows. Like, well, somebody's been keeping up the payments on this storage locker. How are you the first person to catch that? People have been working on this case for like 10 years prior, and then a year since that death. No one else thought it's just in the files. Anyway, so they go to the storage locker, they open it up, there's just a fucking Foot Locker with poison written on it. You're like, okay, well, that's the fucking chemical agent or whatever. And there's like a bunch of those little dolls. There's some okay, so we've caught him. How does Kolchak put it together that Pinero's the bad guy, other than being like, oh, well, you're clearly the bad guy?
I mean, it kind of seems that that's what it was. I don't even really remember how he figured it out. That's how unmemorable this episode is.
Right.
Is that it's like, you kind of go like, you kind of are just at the end, and you go like, wait, what? Okay, whatever.
Well, so he there's some slip of like, how did you know that? I didn't say that yet, or some bullshit, some poorly written fucking trope, right? And he puts it together to Pinero. It's like, but you've been doing it ever since or whatever. And Pinero at one point pulls a gun. He's like, well, Pinero, are we to believe that Pinero doesn't realize that he's the terror maker? I keep almost troublemaker, which is just as bad.
Oh, that'd be so funny. If you're a terrorist who just kind of does like minor inconveniences for people. Just constantly put into detention.
Yeah.
I think he's I don't know, because
he keeps saying things like, you're lying or whatever. And like, I can't let you lie like that, or you can't make these things up or whatever.
Yeah.
He says bullshit like that. So I'm like, is he that mentally ill that he doesn't realize he's the
I didn't even pick up on that. I think that must be what it is, actually. I think you're right, because like there's that scene earlier, like you said, where he has those like kind of flashbacks and he's just like, ugh, being like kind of weird. So yeah, I guess maybe he doesn't realize he's doing it. I don't know.
So he pulls his gun on Kolchak. The wife comes in and she's like, is it true? Is it true? Whatever. And he puts down the gun. And then Kolchak leaves.
My work here is done.
But that's literally what happens.
Time to go write some horoscopes.
Gabriel Union, he says to Gabriel, like, he puts up the story, and he's not releasing the fact that Pinero is the fucking Terror Maker copycat, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, what the fuck? And he's like, Pinero spent 10 years trying to catch a monster. I think the monster finally caught him. That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything at all.
Nope.
But he's basically saying, like, it wasn't Pinero's fault. He spent too long. He got too deep or whatever. Not how that works.
No.
This man is a murderer.
Killed people.
He killed multiple people in a horrific way.
Yeah.
Could you imagine just melting and then catching on fire? It's horrific, right?
I'd be very upset.
I'd be disappointed. Not only that, he's just leaving that other poor fucking schmuck idiot to take the rap for a thing he didn't do. He's going down for murder. He didn't murder them.
Yeah.
You're our hero, and you're letting an innocent man go to jail. Now, granted, he's not like the most innocent. He clearly had terrorist delusions or whatever. But I know this. He didn't kill the people he's going to jail for killing.
Nope. That was this dude and his disappointed wife.
And that's it. That's the end of the show, is our hero being like, fuck it.
The end. Kolchak.
I would fucking love it if that was the theme song for this show.
Kolchak.
Yeah.
At the end of when it comes back.
Oh, when it comes to commercials? Yeah. Every act break. Oh, God damn it, that would make me laugh.
Yeah, it's, this episode was pretty bad.
It was... But I think it's the overall flaw with this show is, well, now we're 4 episodes in, and there's been no story back to the wife. Unacceptable. You got to fucking give me at least, like, I can say, set up the episode in the pilot, next episode, Monster of the Week, perfectly fine. In that next episode, you got to give me something about the wife. Nothing, right? It just hasn't come up. So there's no overarching story. We're just dealing with a week-to-week show that is kind of poorly written and is completely populated with assholes.
Yeah. It's a show where it's like something happens and then like you have a cool line and they're like, hell yeah. Then you move on, but it's like, well, you didn't solve anything.
You didn't solve anything, and the lines aren't cool.
No.
Like, they aren't cool lines. He says the fucking sentence, he spent 10 years trying to catch a monster. I think the monster finally caught him. That means nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, that's true, but also, I mean, I know we've said this a bunch of times, he fucking killed a bunch of people. Like, you have to do something.
You can't just leave him out there to continue. He still has the fucking chemicals.
Yeah.
He still has that whole fucking storage locker full of fire poison.
Also, he just leaves his wife there with him. She's like, all right, lady, well, good luck with this.
Good luck with that. Oh, by the way, gun's still there. I'll talk to you later.
All right, goodbye. I'm Kolchak. I love you. It's like, all right, Kolchak.
So, yeah, I also, Gabrielle Union's, there's the other kind of tension of the episode, not really tension, is the FBI is kind of covering up. They don't want to believe that so Kolchak's initial thing is maybe we didn't kill the right guy. The initial guy wasn't the actual troublemaker. He sends that's how he reveals that Pinero's the guy, and it's so fucking dumb. Halfway through the episode, at the newspaper, they are delivered one of those dolls, and it's wrapped in a piece of newspaper, and it says, I'm back in red marker. And then when he's at the Pinero's apartment and or house, and they're going through the files or whatever, he just also has a red marker.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've seen this before. Yeah. In every art supply store, in every desk in America, you have seen a red marker. That is inconclusive. And he does this too. He picks up the marker, he opens it up, and he draws a line on the paper, and he's like,
Yeah, dude, it's a primary color. You're going to see it.
He also doesn't just draw it. He doesn't draw the line next to the existing message. So he can compare them. He just draws a red line on a marker and goes, "Oh, red line, it's got to be him."
Yeah, I'm like 80% certain.
So fucking stupid.
Yeah, he's not the best reporter. He's not the best detective. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I feel like it's a thing where I feel like this could be any.
This was an episode of Bones. This is not a supernatural. Nothing supernatural happens.
No.
They imply that maybe it's hellfire, which also isn't a thing, and they don't tell us what it's meant to be. But it's not. It's just some chemicals that a guy stole.
Yeah, it's kind of it's kind of like a normal in comparison case. There's no monsters. There's no nothing. It's just maybe they didn't kill the right guy, and now he's back. It's like, well, this could be any show.
No, I found this episode very annoying.
It was it was bad.
And I have I don't have anyone to root for. Jane, who's maybe not an asshole, is also just kind of white bread. There's nothing there. The photographer, he doesn't really add or detract. He's just sort of there. She's a bitch. He's a dickhead. I got nothing.
Yeah, he's just a cipher. He does nothing. And everyone else, is just sort of kind of they're not I don't want to say they're unpleasant necessarily, but they're definitely not super likable.
No, they're definitely
just
not.
Kind of bland.
Yeah.
It's not even oh, I'm a dick. It's not like when you watch House and you're like, this guy's an asshole. This is very entertaining.
Right.
It's like you're just kind of a jerk. And
House gets away with being an asshole because he is such a genius.
He is very competent. Yeah.
So he has this ability to be like, okay, you're an asshole, but he saves the day at the end.
Yeah.
Our guy is just an asshole and accomplishes nothing.
Man, that's such a great way to describe this series. Our guy's an asshole and he accomplishes nothing.
Yeah. Kolchak. You got anything you want to plug? This will be out
Thursday. Friday the 12th, I'm headlining Sure Thing at Fallout Theater at, I think, 9:30. Then I'm on Twitter, at Pat Dean. At me, friends.
Do all that. I'm at Chris Cubis on all social media. You can check me out, chriscubiscomedy.com, for shows and stuff. Canceled was recorded at the beautiful Permanent Record Studios by producer extraordinaire Mike Moody.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, it is. Also, by the way, this place is dope.
It's better than where I normally get my podcast recorded. It's just
your apartment?
Cuck Nation Studios. My apartment where we have to turn the air conditioning off and it gets really unpleasant really quickly.
So if you like the show, rate, review, subscribe. 5 stars on iTunes, please. Tell your friends. Someone that suggested we do Alien Nation, the TV show. However, it is only available for paid service. You got to buy it on Amazon Prime. If you're willing to pay for a show, I will also pay for the show and we will watch it. I know I normally try to do shows you can find online for free. So let me know if that is something the audience of this podcast will be willing to do, because it does look like a fun show.
Alien Nation.
It was a movie and they made a TV show out of it. It was pretty cool. The aliens drink spoiled milk to get drunk. It's pretty cool.
It's kind of tight.
Aliens you gotta get drunk somehow.
Yeah.
Again, if you like the show, rate, review, subscribe, 5 stars on iTunes, and we will see you next week.
Bye.